Let's call to order the April Capital Program Committee meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak? Ms. King?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. We have 7 members of the public registered to speak today. We have 5 in person, 2 remote. As a reminder, we ask that all our public speakers adhere to MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Bruce Haynes, followed by Jesse Figueroa.
Hi, good morning all. Good morning, Jano. The last time I was here, it rained. That was February, and when I took the Long Island Railroad to Jamaica, and I thought, well, maybe I'll find out what is causing all this rust on the side of the station. Now I know because it's a striking station. It's really an iconic station. It's one of the best in the past 100 years. Well, in my lifetime anyway, there hasn't been a station done so nicely, and it sort of stands out. It's like the Guggenheim, you know, before they changed the extreme contrast, the incongruousness. They changed that and put a fancy pattern to, I don't know, to censor it or something. But so I took a look at it, and it was raining, and I went upstairs to see what could be causing this rust. And there's like 2 inches of water. And it wasn't raining very hard on this big cantilevered thing that sticks out. You can walk on it. It's the second level, the level where you would expect to find elevators in a row, but you don't because they didn't include that. So let's see, and it just speaks to the kind of attitude. Why don't they report this? Because that rust has been there for a year. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that causes the situation at Mineola when you spent $3 billion for 3 tracks when it should have been 4. Up is down and down is up, and they can't. It's a grade crossing to get onto the Oyster Bay branch. I mean, it's that kind of thing. It's got to be 6 tracks, too, from Jamaica all the way to Floral Park. You've got to have 6 tracks.
Remarks. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jesse Figueroa, followed by Alida Dupree.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jesse Figueroa here, U.S. Army veteran and member of the Long Island Railroad Accessibility Task Force. I like to say I'm looking forward to congestion pricing T-minus 60 days from now. And that's one part. And number 2, keep the job rolling, keep the ball rolling with capital and other good things. And number 3, please be safe out there. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alida Dupree, followed by Kara Girl.
Good afternoon, Chair Jano, Lieber, and members. Alida Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Folds. Long meeting today, good meeting today, surviving on potato chips and yogurt. Not much in this report, but an item of interest to me is BMT electrical work. A lot of history in the BMT. Some of it predates the original 1904 subway. So 13 substations in this project with some backup components. Hope we can hear more about what this is going to look like. I like hearing the word backup because we don't want the lights to go out. So hopefully this will be the start of some bigger things like battery storage and line side energy storage and demand reduction. So I would say that's certainly the high point of this report is reading about the BMT electrical project. But electricity is foundational. And I have an all-electric home with solar, and I enjoy it. And one reason why I enjoy the system is it runs on electricity. And so capital is very important. And I've been watching videos and press conferences, the Mott Haven presentation, where I was able to see the underrunning third rail. So that's part of what we're doing here. But how do we keep this going? I'm sure we'll have some good reports today about capital. I mean, it's everywhere I go. It's in Omni, it's in new trains, and hopefully some electric buses. And I read something about a new charging system for buses. So anyway, after we have our meeting today, let's continue putting shovels in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kara Girl, followed by Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon. I'm Kara Girl, Planning and Advocacy Manager at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. This past Earth Day and every day, transit is the sustainable way to get around the region. That means investing in transit infrastructure with capital dollars, like those that will come from congestion pricing, which will make the region even more sustainable by getting drivers out of cars and onto transit. We're thrilled to finally have a start date and can't wait for June 30th. As we face more frequent severe weather and climate-related storms, making the system more resilient needs to be a top priority. We've all seen how torrential downpours, coastal flooding, and extreme heat can impact our century-old infrastructure, and we can't wait any longer to make meaningful improvements to protect our transit system. For years, we've called on the MTA to create a forward-looking plan for addressing the climate crisis. We're thrilled that has come to fruition with the Climate Resilience Roadmap released last week, including climate mitigation strategies, resiliency upgrades, goals to reduce flooding and stormwater around the MTA region, challenges, and more. Seemingly small changes like raising the top steps leading into subway stations or covering vents can make all the difference to keep water and floods from infiltrating the system. The 20-year needs assessment laid out the many critical projects that need to get done to keep our transit in a state of good repair, and that will take funding. We're looking forward to working together with elected leaders and our partners in advocacy to ensure that the MTA goes into its next capital program on solid financial footing, including through congestion pricing. With the right investment, we can ensure that future generations can benefit from the transit we depend on today. As we embark on another hurricane season, we hope to see strong coordination between the city, state, and MTA when the inevitable storm does come. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Christopher Greif, who is in person.
Hey, Jano. Hey, Jamie. Jason Anthony for the record. We know that congestion pricing is an early birthday gift for me. That my birthday is on June 19th. But we shouldn't forget that on June 1st starts the hurricane season. That we should get ready for that because we shouldn't forget that the past several years we have been getting floods like Ophelia, Ida, among other things. But also, we should be a bit resilient regarding earthquakes, like the one that we felt almost a month ago, even though that the epicenter was in the Garden State. But I've been doing some thinking, folks. And what about if the odds were, if the epicenter of any earthquake, instead of being in the Garden State, was within our doorsteps, where our system will handle any earthquake? That's what we should be thinking about, folks. Well, our infrastructure will handle the force of any earthquake magnitude of 3 or 4 and above. That's my worrisome from now on. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Next speaker, Christopher Greif, followed by Maddie Bucci's Highland, who is remote.
Good afternoon, Christopher D. Grive here in person. As we are getting to the Capitol, I just like to thank, as a lot of accessibility openings at 150th/151 in Brooklyn, which the communities are very happy to see another accessible station being built and finally can get up and down the trains or enjoy a moment of saying, oh, I can get a little fresh air. Oh, I can get there now without stressing ourselves, getting onto another area of buses, or people want to have a little fun going into certain parts of Brooklyn, into Williamsburg or Greenpoint. But we still need to continue the future of getting more accessible stations, update our buses, update our technology, especially the Omni, because we know we have the Omni testing going on still, but I hope to see more Omni features to come out very soon for accessibility. As my fellow colleagues and advocates have been mentioning, Earth Day was a great Earth, but Earth, one thing we need to prepare for is prepare ourselves for any storms, any kind of storms, to be ready for at all times, and prepare for any floods that we need to be ready at all times, and for safety as well. As we are now getting congestion prices ready in the next June 30th, I just hope to see more data, more information that we can all give out and share and let everyone know that congestion price is here to stay. And I'm very happy because since I get a birthday gift tomorrow, I can enjoy getting congestion pricing with more accessibility stations, more buses, and couldn't update our accessorize. So thank you so much and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Our final speaker is remote, Maddie Bucky's Highland.
Afternoon, folks. I'm Matty Bucky's Highland. For today, I want to originally was about autism, but as one speaker pointed out about you have to be prepared because it's a hurricane. With Colorado State University issuing their forecast, there's a 41% chance of a tropical storm hitting New York, a 16% chance of a hurricane, and a 4% chance of a major hurricane. They're forecasting 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. When Superstorm Sandy happened in October 2012, the leadership was under then of MTA Chairman and CEO Joseph Lota, who's that? But anyway, I want to get to the accessibility point. We have to be prepared for these things in advance, though, because it could very well happen. But for accessibility, in my view, is a privilege and is a right, not a privilege. But we have to make our stations more accessible for our children. When I have my children, my grandchildren with me. Anyway, I hope everyone had a great day. Right. And, I want to finish up with this. On behalf of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and the Autism Awareness Community, we want to thank you for living in a world where we are accepted and understood for who we are. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you all tomorrow. Zoom.
Chair, that concludes the public comment session.
Thank you, Ms. King, and thank you to our public speakers. Copies of the March Capital Program Committee minutes have been distributed and are available on the website. Are there any changes or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Ms. Barbas. Second, thank you, Mr. Jones. All in favor? The minutes are approved. Any changes to the work plan, Mr. Springer, Torres Springer?
Mr. Chair, there is one change to the work plan. We're rescheduling the full Omni update, previously scheduled for April for next month, but in the interim, I'll be providing some Omni updates in a few minutes as part of my report.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the change to the work plan. Thank you, Ms. Barbas. Second, Mr. Herbst. Thank you. All in favor? The motion to change the work plan is approved. Back to Mr. Torres Springer.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members of the committee. I have quite a few updates today. Hopefully, lots of them of great interest to what we're doing as part of this ambitious capital program of ours. Next month, I'll show you a little more on this. This is swapping out the interlockings on the Culver line down at the entrance to Coney Island Yard, which is fascinating, for the F train entering Coney Island Yard. This is part of the CBTC project, but it's a great illustration of how, as we're re-signaling and modernizing signals and making things work more efficiently, we're also dealing with the state of good repair needs of the system by upgrading those old interlockings. We'll have more to show you on that next month. Let's get to some completions. Over the last month, we opened the Metropolitan Lorimer Complex on the G and the L. These were the third and fourth new fully accessible New York City Transit subway stations to open this year. And then we've completed 3 for Metro North. So that's 7 in total just this year. For this project, this is really exciting. It's the completion of the 8th and final station as part of the first design build ADA package that was issued. This came in under budget. This station was really complex and difficult. Approximately 60,000 riders use this station on a typical weekday. It's the 7th busiest station in Brooklyn. In total, and we always talk about how ADA is not just about popping in an elevator. 6 new elevators, a lot of state of good repair work, 6 new platform stairs, a refurbished street staircase, and 2 new street stairs. All of this got done under budget, and we're always excited to have our accessibility advocates join us at these events, as we always manage to do. So the other big completion was the completion of the reconstruction of 63rd Street Tunnel. You can see the Cornell mascot joined us on Roosevelt Island. After a 7-month outage, service was restored on the F and the M from 63rd Street in Manhattan to Roosevelt Island to 21st Street and Queensbridge. This is the final phase of the direct fixation contract that also included, full replacement of running rails, third rail, ties, the concrete foundations underneath the track, all signal and power equipment for that contract for 38,000 feet of track. And here, 63rd Street Tunnel, 25,000 feet of track. So 5 miles of track was fully replaced. We never like to take service out, but we ran an effective replacement shuttle, and by doing so, we prolonged the life of this tunnel and service for many decades to come. This project came in on time and on budget, and we were very pleased to reopen that service last month. We modified the work plan because next month we'll update the committee on the status of a range of fare collection activities altogether, including progress on contactless payment systems on the subways, the buses, and the railroads. Since taking over the completion of Omni last year at the chair's request and treating it like the mega project that it is, we've gotten the critical path elements up and running and are nearly finished with revising the schedule and the commercial terms that go along with it related to that contract. We'll give you a full update on that next month. One example of progress is that we have completed the pilot phase of the rollout of the new OmniCard vending machines. By the end of the day today, we'll have installed the first 65 of the vending machines out of total 900, activated 39 CVMs, card vending machines at 25 stations, and we'll be making steady progress from here as we pick up the pace of that. That's really important because although the great benefit of Omni is to move to contactless payment, we're committed to making sure that everyone can use the new system before we decommission MetroCards, and that includes folks that continue to need to make cash payments and need an Omni card in order to do that. So this rollout is going to pick up steam from here. It also is one of the things that that enables us getting a lot of the bulk groups onto the system, which we'll have news about next month, but is all planned to get done over the course of this year. Of course, the state budget passed last week. Under the leadership of the governor, and I'll just note that in addition to some of the other important measures that the state is taking to support the MTA on the capital side, the governor has followed through on her commitment and her push to us to advance the Interborough Express project with significant funding for the design, preliminary engineering of that project. So we'll be commencing the procurement for that very soon. We also, another project that you'll recall fared very well, and we had a good conversation with the deputy mayor and her staff about this recently, was in our comparative evaluation, which looked at all of these potential expansion projects on a level playing field, was the extension of the 2nd Avenue subway along 125th Street, perhaps as far as Broadway. So we're funded to begin a feasibility study on doing that. That would involve a significant extension of the tunneling work that we're doing as part of Phase 2, which I'll talk about in a second. And we're looking at the feasibility of that. We also were granted $20 million for some resilience measures on the Hudson Line, particularly dealing with some of those climate-related impacts that we've seen lately in the budget. Speaking of which, we released the Climate Resilience Roadmap last week, and we're very excited to have put that plan out. It's a unique plan in a few ways. It's a multi-hazard vulnerability assessment of our system. So we know that our system is vulnerable to storm surge, sea level rise, heavy rainfall, and heat, among other climate risks. And for the first time, our new Climate Planning Division has taken a big step back and assessed the vulnerability of the whole system to all of those hazards. It's also unique in that we're anticipating a range of actions being taken here. We've outlined that we have a need for $6 billion of investment over the next decade, but also we're incorporating resilience into everything we do. And that's the way to get this work done, is not to try to rip out everything in our system and replace it all at once, but to ensure that when we rebuild track or we rebuild infrastructure supporting the right-of-way, we're doing it at the right elevation. Or when we rebuild a system, a substation, a source of power, some other piece of equipment within our system, we're putting it at the right elevation or submarining it or ensure it's protected. Or when we rebuild a stair in the subway system, we're addressing that issue of what elevation it should be at. So that's the big outline of this plan, but it also sets up a system for us to work with our partner agencies and private parties to protect the system. And we launched this plan at Mott Haven Yard, which sees 98% of Metro North service run through it and has flooded 16 times since 2006. So a really critical priority. We mentioned when we were there, city agency staff were out there with us a few weeks ago, analyzing the problem, determining how we best proceed in terms of making that yard more resilient and limit disruption, and great partnership that we anticipate with the city and other partners on that. So that's our roadmap. These are some of the elements of our program that don't get done without major federal support, as with the $7.6 billion of investment in coastal flood rebuilding and protection since Sandy. We were also pleased that that work will continue as we deal with the more recently acknowledged threat of stormwater flooding, which impacts our subway yards and can be the cause of service disruptions. The federal DOT recently gave us a $33 million PROTECT grant to install a complete stormwater drainage system in Westchester Yard in the Bronx, which is home of the 6 train, carries 500,000 people per weekday. That's our busiest line. And we will be able to add the stormwater drainage to protect that location in the near future. On a similar note, throughout the system, you'll start to see signage noting projects that have been funded by President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. What you see here is Borough Hall, where the ADA project and station renewal that benefits from federal funding is well underway. Speaking of federal priorities, Construction and Development initiated the pre-qualification stage of the major tunneling contract for 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 this month. We've been clear in saying that moving this project forward requires the conclusion of the litigation on congestion pricing. But as we move closer to that date, we're ensuring that we're in a position to keep critical projects moving on schedule, and that certainly includes 2nd Avenue Subway. So we've begun the pre-qualification stage for that contract. Before getting to our systems business unit report, an update on some important state of good repair work. As we've talked to the committee before, we're looking closely at the whole Grand Central artery from 42nd Street through the train shed and the tunnel that Metro North travels through, the Park Avenue Viaduct up at 125th Street, right up to the Harlem River Lift Bridge. We've previously discussed the importance of the Park Avenue Viaduct, which, like Mott Haven Yard, carries 98% of Metro North service. we awarded a federally funded contract to address structural state of good repair issues, essentially replacing the viaduct in place from 115th Street to 123rd Street. Through a design-build contract, the contractor came in 21 months ahead of our estimated schedule and will do this work without any disruption to service. The key to that is the yellow gantry that you can see sitting now atop the viaduct, which will lift out the old sections of track and put in the new sections of track on weekends without a reduction in service. We're able to take out one side or the other on the weekend during reduced weekend service. This first phase is on schedule and on budget. We expect to start actually all of the structural work underneath the viaduct, really the replacement of the entire structure, has been essentially completed with the exception of a couple of blocks. And now on the weekend of May 18th, we expect the contractor to start with that work of replacing the viaduct itself with the gantry that's been put in place. That's very exciting. But C&D determined last year that Phase 2, which is, as you can see, above 125th Street, could not wait based on continued structural deterioration. So we amended the capital plan last summer to add funding for this next phase. We've now determined that the most efficient way to proceed is through a change order to the contractor working on Phase 1, and this action is on the CPC and the board agenda this month. This will save us a lot of time because the contractor will be able to start work in parallel on the second phase while completing the first phase. And through avoided duplication of effort, we will save at least $30 million on this work. So happy to take questions on that when Ms. Boudoir introduces the board action items shortly. One more project that I wanted to spotlight that reached substantial completion last month, and it's the type of project we don't necessarily do a big ribbon cutting for, is the line structure component repairs on the concourse line, the B and the D in the Bronx. Line structure component repairs don't exactly roll off the tongue, but it's essential work to keep a system as old as ours running, and this project is a great example of the work we're doing here at C&D to get things done better, faster, and cheaper. The concourse line is an essential service for the West Bronx, serving B and D train riders from Bedford Park to Fordham to Yankee Stadium into Manhattan. It's been there for close to 100 years. In 1925, the Board of Estimate first approved construction of the line as part of the city-owned independent subway. Seen here are photos of that original cut-and-cover construction before the line opened in 1933. And since then, it's been exposed to 100 years of water infiltration, road salt, chemicals, and weight above it, all of which led to substantial defects in the steel structure that supports the Grand Concourse above it. Without reinvestment, nothing lasts forever, as you can see in these images, which is why, as part of this capital program, we undertook the largest line structure reconstruction job in the history of the line. Over the course of 27 months, we comprehensively worked our way up and down the concourse line from 161st Street to 205th Street, repairing and replacing structural steel and contract. And thanks to the innovation of C&D, led by our delivery group and Mark Roche and Syed Abbas, who's, he may have showed up here, he may be busy on his next project. He also completed the 63rd Street track reconstruction at the same time. We were able to work with DOT and the community to provide access from above at the street level. That meant avoiding costly and disruptive track access needs that would have inconvenienced our customers much more. It also meant we were able to get much more work done, period. Anytime we do a project like this, once you open up the concrete, you often find defects far beyond what an external survey could have shown. And this was no exception. We were able to handle many of these defects that we found. The result of this was a project delivered on time and on budget, even as we got more work done than we originally scoped. So we got more done and did it on time and on budget. And while much of this work is hidden in plain sight, for our customers, the results were immediate. We used the outages that were required to coordinate some of the very first renovations undertaken by our partners at Transit. So as we head toward the next capital plan in the fall, which, as you know, will focus on continuing to ramp up our state of good repair efforts. These success stories point the way for what we were able to accomplish. I'm going to transition to our systems business unit, but I'm conscious that I had a lot of updates there. So I don't know, Chair, if you'd like to stop and make any comments or take any questions.
Always invite the board and other folks to inquire questions, comments. I mean, for me, looking at this just reinforces what I've been saying in a lot of my public statements, which is it's time for the folks to stop judging us by projects begun under Governor Pataki and start judging us by projects this team is doing now. And you just heard about the on-time, on-budget track record of the ADA projects, the 63rd Street Tunnel, track rehab, 5 miles of track rehab, and most recently, that concourse line structure project. On time, on budget. It's a theme you're hearing about again and again. But with that, unless there are questions, we'll throw it to the business unit for their comments.
Great. So we're going to hear from Eric Jones, Vice President and Deputy Business Unit Lead, who's stepping in for our business unit leader, Mark Beanstalk, who's out today for the holiday. Go ahead, Eric.
Good afternoon. As you'll hear, systems are at heart of reliable on-time performance. It's all the technologies the team will talk about, but it's also infrastructure that connects them to each other and allows them to communicate. Today's presentation will address 3 aspects of this. First, what systems are and the challenges we face to maintain and enhance them. Second, projects we're working on to address those challenges proactively. And third, the strategic approach we're taking to ensure that we are setting our operating agencies up for success as we add new technologies to the mix. Thank you. What are systems? We'll begin with a scenario we're all familiar with to illustrate waiting on a train on the platform. As you first enter the station, you will find real-time information screens, more security and safety cameras than ever, and newly enhanced fare gates with Omni technology. While waiting on the platform, there's greater access than ever to real-time wayfinding, upgraded and expanded train arrival times, customer assistance with help points, and personal device connectivity with Wi-Fi and cellular. Next. There is more than meets the eye to make all of this happen. These benefits require an array of systems on the back end that work together and depend on one another to operate reliably. All of this in-station technology converges in a local communication room, the central nervous system of the station, through fiber optic, radio, and copper cabling communications. In there, local computer systems process data and share control with operators at the Rail Control Center, now renamed the Operations Control Center, or OCC, and allows for communication with customers in the station. All of this occurs in real time and at a massive scale that is growing as more systems and requirements come online. The subway alone has hundreds of radio antennas, hundreds of miles of radio cable, fiber optic cable, copper cabling, and over 640 communication rooms. Across all of the MTA, there are tens of thousands of critical devices, thousands of critical locations, scores of mission-critical systems, and mission-critical facilities. Systems, though, are much more than a lot of technology or assets. A system is a collection of different elements that together produce results not obtainable by the elements alone. All of these individual assets and the data they're carrying need to be tied together at our command centers to enable us to deliver service on the incredible scale that we do, with approximately 2.6 million train trips and over 1 billion customer journeys a year. To illustrate the vulnerabilities, here's an image from one of New York City Transit's over 4,000 manholes. We see water in the base of the manhole with fiber optic cable that transport data from many of our systems. While local safety is not compromised, with telecom failures, our ability to manage a highly productive service could be. These systems are critical and they're vulnerable. With such a large network coordinating together of so many different assets and generations of assets installed over the past 30+ years, there's a lot that can go wrong. Maybe a 1990s era piece of equipment goes out and we don't have any spare parts remaining. Maybe there's a break in the cables, exposed as they sometimes are to water. If something breaks down, it can impact our ability to provide customers with up-to-date information or even to run our operations efficiently. For example, while safety was never compromised, we've recently seen outages at our operations control center stemming from the failure of 30-year-old equipment that required us to revert to manual operation of service for hours on end. As our systems age, we need to work hard to avoid this. Let's turn to discuss what the Systems Business Unit is doing about it. The Systems Business Unit was established in 2022 to develop within C&D an expertise in these mission-critical systems and control center operations, which incorporates multiple disparate systems to manage the operation of the subway system. There are three aspects to what we do. One, state of good repair work, replacing old infrastructure and replacing obsolete technologies. Two, adding new capacity, expanding existing systems and adding entirely new ones. Three, optimizing operations, integrating new and old systems with the people who operate them in mind. Beginning with state of good repair, shown here are examples of systems upgraded and improved by the Systems Business Unit. Old analog emergency booth communication systems to new high-speed digital systems with redundant communications paths. Obsolete radio systems to new reliable radio systems for subways communications. Static paper customer information centers to new digital dynamic information centers. Old stations public address systems, which were often hard to hear, to new digital audio public address systems with upgraded LCD screens. Not pictured here, but equally important, we upgrade the copper and fiber optic communications infrastructure, install uninterruptible power supplies, communication room cooling systems, fire detection and alarm systems, access control, CCTV and security systems. All systems and infrastructure necessary to keep our facilities, subways, and bus service operating. All systems upgrades also require upgrading our physical plant and network capacity. Here's an example of a project that is both addressing state of good repair and upgrading an antiquated system. The BMT division's Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, or SCADA system, that monitors and controls third rail traction power, is being upgraded as part of our new approach to delivering mission-critical systems. We're working closely with MTA and Transit to modernize field equipment and replace 4 generations of software and green screen technology dating back to the 1980s that is currently operating at our Power Control Center with a new modern standards-based industry solution. A new backup emergency power control center is also being built under this project as part of our resiliency improvements. The modernization contract for the IRT SCADA is planned to be awarded in 2026, to be followed by the IND. I will now turn the rest of the presentation over to my colleague Paul Corrigan, Vice President in charge of our Industrial and Systems Engineering Group.
Thank you, Eric, and good afternoon, everybody. Continuing with the state of good repair, we'll turn to the Rail Control Center, which is the heart of the operation, and where a team of teams works 24/7 with systems to manage service. It's a mission-critical facility. We've made a number of major performance upgrades in the past 2 to 3 years, including a large video wall so that staff can monitor all train movements in real time, a fully equipped theater space ready for future CBTC operations, increased security systems inside the facility, and hardened backup power for critical systems. For long-term resilient upgrades, we've just begun design of a total HVAC replacement and resilient power system upgrade for the building, as well as mirroring systems to backup sites. We're also working beyond the RCC at over 27 other critical facilities across all of the MTA agencies and are developing plans for similar upgrades at those locations as well. Turning to future needs for systems, for all systems, on the right of the chart you'll see there's an excerpt from the recent 20-year needs publication, which shows a lot of need has been identified for systems to keep pace with a growing service. To help to prioritize needs, we began last fall a deep dive assessment of telecoms, and I'll mention one issue that we've been addressing, that fiber optic plant that Eric showed in the earlier slide. With over 4 million feet across New York City, fiber supports many of Subway's critical systems. A modern installation in good condition may have a lifespan of a few decades. Much of Subway's is 40 years old in a harsh environment and may take up to 10 more years to replace. The fiber also has other useful and functional life concerns, so the needs identified are crucial to address. The overall picture emerging is that we need a significant investment compared to prior programs in telecoms, as well as other systems, and we've begun working with our partners across the MTA to determine the best path forward. Now, we also add new systems and capabilities to support the growth of transit. We see firsthand how technology and data are enabling us to manage operations and the customer experience more efficiently and more effectively. Subway started its modern systems journey in the 1980s with the traction power management system that Eric mentioned earlier. Since then, for over 40 years, decade by decade, Subways has been growing the number and scale of systems it uses to deliver better service. Before very long, the subway will be using the same amount of data as a city of 380,000 people just for the subway, and it will continue to grow. So we need to have the agency, the systems, and the infrastructure ready. One of the major drivers in that data figure are the new security cameras that we're adding, particularly at the fare control areas, which are shown here. Subways have 472 stations, so it makes a lot of cameras, systems, and data to provide for the enhanced security that we need. As a case study, shown here is an $87 million construction project underway to add fare control cameras in 106 stations, with a further 100 stations coming in follow-up contracts. Adding to the thousands of cameras already in service, beyond fare control areas, we deploy cameras in other station areas and on our subway cars. Now, circling back to the beginning of the presentation, that camera data is shared with different users in different facilities. So you see how the user, the facility, the fiber infrastructure, the station, and the camera technology, they all tie together and depend on one another as a total system. So with that concept of tying together in mind, I want to turn now to how we're bringing existing and future needs and systems together in the most constructive way. So as we upgrade technology and add capability, it takes thoughtful planning to marry the new with the old. The challenge is also more than just technology. New systems, they change the way that we work and perform as a team of teams. So we need to master optimizing our operations with new technologies as a system for greater benefit. As shown on the right, our approach has been asset and project driven to now and worked well when systems we're fewer and less interconnected. But with today's challenges, we now need to add a new approach to system management, driving capabilities that join technology, operations, maintenance, engineering, industry, and management factors together to develop the best solutions. So to do this, we're establishing a new strategic group for mission-critical systems at the MTA, called Mission Systems Directorate. It brings together leadership from C&D, MTA IT, and all the agencies in developing a joint future for systems at the MTA. As its first step, it will focus on telecoms, developing a robust strategic approach and plan for all MTA agencies to begin to work towards. Now, I'll give just 3 benefits of the examples to capabilities that this approach will bring. So first, in customer assistance, improving call reporting and response coordination across multiple teams at the RCC and the field, as calls for customer assistance are at over 1 million per year and growing. In platform safety, improving platform safety with new solutions like track intrusion detection systems, where optimizing communication and decision-making between the station, the train, the RCC, and the power control center are crucial to reducing response times. And in track work safety, improving safety for our track workers on the right-of-way by better integrating traction power status at the PCC with operations at the RCC, as more work than ever is taking place in the field. These are just some initial examples. There are many more complex issues in systems across the MTA that the Directorate will be taking on to benefit the growing MTA system and ultimately the traveling public. And with that, I'll yield back to the chair, and thank you.
Okay, complicated stuff, but this is where the action is in a modern technology-driven system like ours. So any questions or comments from the board before we turn to the IEC for their review of this group's activities? Okay. IEC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Suresh Payeti, Program Director of the IEC, and I will provide a brief update on the IEC's monitoring responsibilities of C&D's Systems Business Unit. Currently, the IEC monitors C&D's Systems Business Unit through projects reviewed for cost and schedule adherence in the Quarterly Traffic Light Report, TLR. The Systems Business Unit concentrates on implementing new security, safety, advanced communication, and information technology improvements throughout the transit system, providing system-wide upgrades and enhancements that have brought significant service improvements and customer amenities. The IEC commends C&D's recent formation of a task force that has been charged with protecting system vulnerabilities and is undertaking new security measures to protect critical communication infrastructure and upgrade of assets. This creates a path forward to ensure the continued protection and uninterrupted delivery of critical communication technologies and services. Moving forward, to complement the project reporting in the TLR, the IEC will also provide more detailed, comprehensive monitoring of 2 systems projects currently in construction: emergency alarm installations and system-wide Ethernet connection improvements. These IEC reports will be presented at the next Systems CPC board meeting. This concludes the IEC's update on the Systems Business Unit.
Okay, any questions or comments? Mr. Herbst, your first time around, but the IEC is the independent engineering consultant who provides the board with an independent review of what C&D is doing. Thanks. There's a lot, very substantive material today, but a lot is being accomplished. So thank you for that. We have, I think we have to go to procurements now, if I may, Ms. Budwa.
Thank you. Construction and Development is presenting 4 procurement actions totaling $246 million to the Capital Program Committee for approval this month. The first item, which President Torres Springer mentioned earlier, is a modification to the contract for the first phase of the Park Avenue Viaduct replacement. The base contract is for the replacement of the viaduct between East 115th Street and East 123rd Street, and that work is currently underway. This modification will add what is referred to as Phase 2, which is the replacement of the viaduct between East 127th Street to East 132nd Street. Adding the Phase 2 work as a change order will result in overall schedule savings of approximately 18 months and overall cost savings of approximately $70 million relative to procuring a separate contract. It will also significantly reduce impacts to Metro-North service, the riding public, and the surrounding community. This month's package also includes ratification of a modification to repair infrastructure damaged by a mudslide on the Metro-North Railroad's Hudson Line, ratification of a modification for concrete repairs to a 40-foot section of platform at Metro-North Railroad's Rise Station, and finally, a ratification of a modification to supply and install signal wiring for the program logic controller system being installed in the Coney Island Yard. These items are described in detail in the staff summaries contained in your committee books, and I hereby submit them for your consideration and vote.
Any questions for Ms. Boudoir? Comments? Okay, in that case, motion, Ms. Barbas. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, for the second. All in favor? Okay, the items carry. I think that concludes today's agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Mr. Herbst, thank you. We are adjourned.